This episode contains material that may not be suitable for some audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
Hi there, I'm Dumpy the Pumpkin. Carvel's Halloween ice cream cake. I weigh 44 ounces and serve 10 to 12 people.
Having a Halloween party? I'm Wiki the Witch, and I weigh 45 ounces. We're both made fresh daily at your participating Carvel ice cream store.
You want to send one to a friend? Please phone 800-327-GIFT and call the Cake Honors most major credit cards. Thank you.
Here's Johnny.
I see dead people.
Have you checked the children? When there's no more room in hell, the dead will walk here.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
The power of Christ compels you!
Coming to you from New England's darkest heart, this is the Deep Dive Podcast, Horror Month. Join us, if you dare.
Hello, divers. This is the show that both of you have been waiting for. The Deep Dive Podcast, the show that takes a closer look at some of the offerings on your favorite streaming media services. Whether it's Netflix, Amazon Prime, Vudu, Tubi, or not to be, I never get tired of that joke. We find the rare, the unusual, or the just plain forgotten. I'm Tom Feeney, writer for Wang's Chop Movie Magazine, new issue available very soon, hopefully on Amazon.com. And with me, as always, is
Amanda, co-host extraordinaire, famed beauty and lover of all things dinosaur, but of course, you already knew that.
Indeed we did.
Yes. Remember we did a dinosaur episode? Where, you remember that? It was like 2 hours long.
Oh, I've tried to forget.
Yeah, okay.
It's our, speaking of horrible things, it's our third week of Horror Month, and we have something very special for you.
We're going to get paid?
No.
Oh.
No, but it is special, which, kind of makes all the other weeks suck by comparison. We have our first ever Pod Over Crosscast. I'm sorry, podcast crossover. That's not a thing.
No, I like the first one.
Sounds like a toaster strudel.
It does. Delicious. A Pod Over. Pod podcast. That should be a thing. Let's do
it.
People do like toaster pastries.
Yeah.
Pod podcast.
What he's trying to say is we have guests.
We do. We have guests. Joining us are the co-hosts of the awesome Belligerence podcast, Dean and Jay. I always want to say Jan and Dean because that's a surfer band.
Don't do that.
They were a duo in the Jan and Dean.
Let's just do it.
They were they were popular in the 1960s when Jay was in his mid-20s.
No, Jay was in his mid-20s when FDR was.
That's right.
Third time, I think it was.
Yeah, he was recovering from polio.
Yes,
You both. You do know I am. You do know I am totally biting my lip right now to swear my head off, but I won't.
By the way, Tom, your intro is much better than our intro.
Well, see, we have to do it like that because the content sucks so much that we have to make it sound as professional as possible to make up for that.
Hey,
That's not true. Ours is the opposite because our content is just so desirable that people just want us to dive right into it.
It's very
deep dive into it.
They don't want any fluff at the beginning. They're just like, please give me that delicious, delicious belligerence.
Exactly. So if you guys wouldn't mind, tell us more about, the Belligerence podcast, where you can find it, what it's all about, all that good stuff.
Go ahead, Dean.
Oh, you want me to take this one?
Sure.
All right. So Belligerence podcast is a podcast about nothing, really. It's about kind of whatever the news of the day is, whatever's pissing Jay off the most. We've tried to steer it back toward topical things, but usually it's just rants about
not like ointment, topical ointment.
No. Topical like topics.
Yeah, how's that rash, Dean?
We should actually
moist ointment.
Ew, don't say that word.
Moistment.
Let's just do a podcast on moist.
So we try to stay away from like politics and things like that, but we sometimes go down that road. But really, it's just what was it? Lifestyle, social issues, etc. And you can find us wherever podcasts are sold. any of the major podcast platforms, Spotify, Apple Music, Stitcher, etc. At Belligerence Podcast on Instagram. And if you want to email us questions or things like that, it's belligerencepodcast@gmail.com.
Absolutely. So that is where you're going to send all of your hate mail to Jay.
Yes. Yeah, because you might have some after this one, actually.
Exactly. Oh,
no, wait a minute. Hate mail to Jay.
How long have you guys been doing this?
We've, Jay, lost January 2019, so about 10 months now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And from what Jay's telling me,
in.
yeah. So Jay's telling me you guys are doing pretty well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We hit 10,000 downloads overall.
That's awesome. Congrats.
And we have 1,500 followers.
Yeah, 1,500 subscribers.
That's fantastic.
I don't know what people like because it's literally like
it's two semi-fat guys kind of basically talking about nothing.
One fat guy and one semi-fat guy.
Well, that's what I mean.
And vaping.
That's way too long a title.
One fat guy and one semi-fat guy.
And apparently one guy with tuberculosis.
Yes. Well, Jay isn't vaping today. He must like it.
Oh, wow.
I didn't bring the vape up. Sorry.
You got to get
it's
that
illegal. It's illegal in Massachusetts.
Like independent vape company. No, there's no cyanide in our product.
Anyways, to get back to the point of our show.
So, yes.
Yeah.
We've invited.
You have. Well, I mean, I invited.
Fine.
You're allowing them.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, basically, Jay and Dean are honored guests because Dean and Jay, I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry. It's like Siskel and Ebert.
Who are they?
Dean and Jay to our podcast because we are in the midst of our month-long horror festival right here.
Yeah, we are.
And I know that Jay is a big fan of horror movies.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that Dean is a big fan of Jay. So I figure, that would be a great thing to have them on to talk about some horror movies. And what's our topic this week, Manda?
We're doing classic monsters.
That's right. We're talking vampires. We're talking mummies. We're talking wolfmen or werewolves. There's a difference.
There's definitely a difference.
Anybody know what that difference is?
Hair.
Well, partly. They both have hair.
Yeah.
Driver's license.
Werewolves don't have any
No,
clothes.
one has a choice and one doesn't have a choice.
What?
Kind of thing. Right?
Not exactly.
Let me look up my Harry Potter Wiki guide.
No. Anyway.
One
werewolf
comes out at night and the other one wears a cape.
Werewolves lose their clothes and they're naked when they wake up. Wolfmen still have their clothes on.
So do people who aren't werewolves.
Well, that might be you, Tom. I don't know.
The difference, we've all been there. So a wolf man is a half man, half wolf.
Oh.
A werewolf is a man that turns into a wolf-like creature.
Yes.
So he goes more full wolf than a wolf man does.
Okay.
There's a lot of werewolves in your movie, isn't there, Dean?
I wouldn't know.
This is getting off to a good start.
Yeah. You've told me there was.
Oh God.
So Dean, okay. Since we're all curious about your pick. What exactly is your movie?
All right. Dun 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 dun. It's
ready.
Trick or Treat. 2007 Michael Dougherty.
One of Jay's favorites.
Yeah.
Trick or treat!
This is the one night that all sorts of things roam free. All these traditions have started to protect us, but nowadays, no one really cares. Tonight is about respecting the customs, not breaking them.
It is certainly.
And I really screwed up by telling him to watch that movie.
Jay has repeatedly told me that it's an 80s style classic horror film.
That's 80s style, definitely.
Yeah.
Classic.
So they made exclusively bad movies in the 80s?
Oh man! Oh, here we go. Here we go.
All right, so let me preface this a little bit, Tom. Okay. So I'm the worst person to have on your show because I don't watch movies. I haven't had cable in years. Growing up, my family it just wasn't something we did. Like I didn't see Back to the Future until like 2 years ago. Jay, what did you ask me before the show? If I saw Gremlins?
Yes.
Never saw Gremlins. So like I don't watch movies. I'm not any kind of a movie connoisseur at all. And I also have a problem like suspending reality to like just enjoy something at face value.
Oh, you must know my wife then.
Critical. Yeah, I do.
Yeah, that's my wife too.
I know Jay's wife really well.
Excuse me?
No, but I can't suspend reality to like just enjoy a movie. Like I think that's why Jay and I have such starkly different opinions of this movie, is because like I'm critical.
Yes,
Jay
are.
definitely has the ability to just kind of let go and enjoy something. My instinct is to criticize.
So basically, if you're the kind of person that says, "Oh, that could never happen," horror movies are not your thing.
Yes, correct.
Okay, documentaries maybe.
Yeah, actually, yeah, you're dead on.
Like
yes,
Chernobyl, that never happened.
So with that being said, Dean, why don't you go first?
You really want me to go first?
Yes,
go for it.
Let's do it.
All right, guys. Well, all right. So, man, you're really throwing me.
Excuse me, 1 second.
Yeah.
Throw
Can
you
I
to the
boo
werewolves?
and hiss at you while you do this?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
You're all going to. So actually, let me get your feeling on this. Tom, is this really one of your, is this a movie you're a fan of?
So I am a fan of it in the sense that I understand what it was trying to do, and as a product of its time, it has not aged that well. But, you know, back when it came out, it was, I thought, an entertaining movie. I didn't go there to learn anything. So
No.
for me, I enjoyed it. I've seen it a few times. It's not, I can shut my brain off and just enjoy it. So for me, yeah, I mean, it's a good, solid 80s style horror movie. You know, it's not going to change the world, but I can relax. I can enjoy it and just watch it. And
It's a cult classic.
How about you, Amanda?
Well, why do you say it's dated? You don't walk around with your Sony Walkman anymore?
Yes, I
Well,
do.
it's only from 2007.
Yeah, I mean, but it is of that style, like you said, 80s style.
By the way,
I do
Sony
quite like it.
Walkmans are coming back. I just want to let
I
you
mean,
know that.
it's I take it at face value. It's not one of my favorite horror movies, but it's a good pick, I think.
Yeah, I'd say it's a solid pick.
All
Definitely.
right, so I'll run through. Well, first of all, let me give you the ratings. IMDb gave it a 6.8,
That's
which
surprising.
I feel is a lot more on par with my opinion of the movie than Rotten Tomatoes, which gave it an 84.
That seems generous, really.
It was
Yeah, it
really
does. It
generous.
seems very generous, and usually Rotten Tomatoes is pretty harsh. And I'm kind of surprised that they didn't see through some of the stuff that I saw through. Like it just, you know what I mean? Like some of the movies that I would think are critically the best movies get railed on Rotten Tomatoes.
But it's funny because you're preaching to the choir with stuff like this. If you're a fan of that kind of stuff, you're going to like it. If you're not a fan of it, you probably have never seen it and aren't going to rate it.
True. Yeah. Amazon had a 4.5 stars. And then audience score on Rotten Tomatoes is 71%. I gave it a 5 out of 10, and that was at Jay's begging.
I made him.
I had it at a 4.5 out of 10, and Jay was just like, "Come on, just give it a 5."
I said give it a 5, but I
ahead.
said give it a 5 for one reason, real quick, is because of how all the stories are connected to the same town.
And I'll get to it. You kind of like turned me on to something I didn't notice at first, so it deserved a slightly better score. But Tom, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
No, I'm just saying that with this, you know, with a particular film like this, it's kind of, it's not a direct kind of a narrative sort of thing. It's kind of a little all over the place. But
Yes.
as a, you know, thematically, I can appreciate what they were trying to do, even if they weren't entirely successful at it. I can still appreciate the effort. And on that level, like I said, I found it somewhat entertaining. It's not, I wouldn't call it one of my top 10, top 20, top 100, you know, but for what it was decent.
So I made a pros and cons list.
I like that.
I also I took 8 pages of notes.
Oh my, he did, and he also
literally 8
he
pages
also
of notes.
added pictures.
And I
to
added
them.
pictures and screenshots, and I highlighted the notes that I think are like the most relevant for this. So if you're okay with it, I was going to give you the pros and cons, and then maybe just point out a couple of the notes that
Go
stood
for
out
it.
to me.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
All right, so I'll start with the pros. The direction was pretty good. I thought some creative camera shots. I didn't think too many of them were like suspense building or especially scary. I thought that they were more artsy. Really good like first person shots and environmental perspective shifts. Like for example, there was one scene where Sam was like looked like he was on the floor, and then kind of the camera panned around and it was on the ceiling. So I thought there were some decent camera shots and good direction. The wraparound plot was pretty unique. So you kind of see the same story play out again from the point of view of a different character at the end. A couple different characters, actually. The villain's appearance, Sam, I thought it was pretty cool. It was menacing. Even if Sam didn't really do anything that was particularly menacing. It's
what?
Like, yeah, there was no real. The very, very end was like, all right. So like, can I spoil this, or like how far do you go with like spoiling movies?
We usually leave it to our own judgment, which is always poor. So go ahead.
All right, great. So the scene at the end when he is about like he bites the popsicle in half and he's about to stab.
Not a popsicle. It's a
popsicle. Jeff.
No, it's not. It's a lollipop.
Oh my God!
You can't stab somebody with a popsicle.
You're really gonna split. You're gonna get into semantics now.
I am.
You know what I meant.
If you put a lollipop in the freezer, does it become a popsicle? I'm not sure.
No, it does not.
That's a good question.
I don't know.
It's not. Tom,
if you cover a popsicle in like candy and then let it harden to become a lollipop,
I'm just gonna shut up.
That's philosophers maybe can address it someday.
Someday, we haven't evolved that far yet where we can answer these kinds of questions. One of the pros I had was everybody likes candy.
It's Halloween.
No, just in general. And then I thought the lore was kind of cool. So the character Sam is named after Samhain, which is the Celtic festival of the dead.
Yes.
And Samhain isn't a deity, but it was referred as one because a bishop in the 1st century wrote a book and it had a deity of the same name.
He goes so deep, doesn't he?
Well, hey, I'm
That's
trying
good.
to give it.
That's good.
I'm trying to give it something, right? So like it
It's a
had.
deep dive.
I thought it was cool that he had backstory. At least there's some lore to this,
Yeah.
Now the cons. You ready?
Oh, I can't wait. This is gonna be good.
All right, so verbatim, poor, bordering on criminal character development from the very beginning.
Boo.
From the very first scene.
Yes.
Characters just pop in and out of the movie with no context. And the climax of the movie involved a character who was never named explicitly in the movie. It was the bus driver, but there's no fabric there to even suggest that until the very last seconds of the movie. Literally the last seconds.
Boo and double hiss.
Yeah. Lots of implied horror, but very little actual horror. There's a lot of blood, but most of the horror scenes were just jump cuts.
Doesn't horror have blood in it? Like,
but I see. I draw a distinction between gore and horror.
Okay.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Like Saw is horror, right? And I know that's such a
that's gore.
No, it's not. It's psychological horror.
Like horror films can have gore, but gory films don't necessarily are not necessarily horror films.
Yeah.
So, like, I think a lot of the horror scenes in this movie were jump cuts, where like you'd see something start to happen, and then the camera would cut, and they'd be dead. For example, Jay, the carnival or the party was it a carnival? Is that what you'd call it? Where the woman gets attacked.
No, it was a parade.
All right, parade. Fine.
It's a Halloween parade.
Yeah, you're really.
They have Halloween parades in Salem.
You're getting lost in the weeds here, dude. Like, just let me get to the point. So he catches her in the alleyway. He bites her or something with his steel teeth. She starts bleeding. She starts running, and then before you know it, the camera cuts, and she's sitting on the ground dead, and he's closing her eyes with his fingers.
Actually, she's sitting on a bench.
Oh my God, who cares?
And Jay's picking on you for semantics.
Really?
It happens to be one of my favorite Halloween movies. I watch every Halloween.
But you know I'm not wrong. That's why you're nitpicking semantics here. A lot of the plot was very on the nose, and I know that like corny horror movies, it's like a genre, right? And like that makes some of the best horror movies. But like I think a little subtlety can go a long way.
Yeah,
sure, absolutely.
I agree.
The acting overall was pretty bad. I thought that Rip Torn, who wasn't Rip Torn, but I was close. It was Brian Cox.
Brian Cox, yeah.
He does kind of look like,
but
he is
it
a good
depends
actor.
on what he's given.
He looks like Rip Torn.
He does look like Rip Torn, yeah.
Rest in peace. Rip. The 4 Disney girls were unwatchably bad. It was every scene that they were in was goosebumps cringeworthy. So was Steven. And you know what? He got an award. So he won an award for best supporting actor in a horror film. And that is remarkable. 2007 must have been a bad year for horror movies.
Sim didn't win anything.
No, well, he didn't have any. He had a total of a minute on screen.
Sam's amazing.
And then Jay, the reason why I brought the rating up is because Jay was the one who finally tied everything together for me when he came up here. I didn't realize that the bus driver was the guy at the end of the movie until Jay pointed it out to me. In fairness to me, that is not clear at all.
Yeah, that's just poor direction and editing right there.
It is, but one of the things that I liked about the situation is where you see him throwing old photos in a fire. And if you, I'll be honest with you, the second time I watched the movie, I got it.
So not the first time?
No. The first time I was a lot like you, like, okay, who is this guy? And then I realized who he was at the end. And that kind of tied it all together and it was kind of cool.
Yeah.
You know?
So Tom, do we have time for me to like just point out a couple notes?
Yeah, go right ahead.
All right. So at 1:24, I wrote, haha, she put the pumpkin out and the heavy breathing of the presumably evil character made me laugh out loud because it sounded like Winston Churchill was lumbering towards them. So it had a camera behind him and he's weird.
Dude.
And at that point, you don't know what that is. At 4 minutes in, the most confusing scene in the movie unfolded. And I'm gonna try to be not vulgar here.
Okay.
Woman puts the candle out in the pumpkin, says, I'm gonna clean up. Husband goes upstairs. Woman gets attacked by Sam. Cuts to the husband who has fallen asleep on the bed watching porn. And the sound of his wife's scream wakes him up, but he thinks it's just the porn. So he goes back to sleep. Like, who uses porn as a sleep aid?
That's about as 2007 as it gets.
Yeah. But, you know, just to make one thing clear about this movie, if anybody is curious in seeing the movie, which I wish they would because some people's tastes are much better than others.
All right.
But
wow.
What I like about Sam, he's kind of like this character of Halloween. So everybody that's connected in this movie that Sam deals with has to do with doing something bad or wrong towards Halloween or in their lives. That's the way I kind of put it together. So I don't know. That was my 2 cents in the movie because I like the movie.
So lots of gratuitous nudity in this movie. And speaking of tits,
oh my, the
adolescent boy named Charlie, the man boobs on that kid would have been boner inducing if I didn't know any better.
Wow. Okay.
And then out of nowhere, some guy who looked like Buddy Holly showed up and said, "This can't be good for your diabetes, Charlie." He then poisoned his candy, and Charlie, in the best acting of the movie,
that's Steven.
Charlie.
No.
Yeah, Steve, I know that now. Yeah. I was calling him Buddy Holly this whole time.
Okay.
In the best acting in the movie, Charlie starts gurgling and then throws up blood everywhere. And it's hands down the best. He should have been the one to win Best Supporting Actor in a horror film. What else happened here? So they called someone Rhonda the retard, which was alarming. I couldn't believe they said it.
It's 2007, so.
A bunch of kids showed up at a door and it was a swingers costume party. And I wrote, the woman who answered the door looks like Joan Cusack if she was trapped in a sex cult that exclusively ate Chick-fil-A for every meal for 5 straight years.
God,
no, that's oddly specific.
Yeah. She had an aura of Joan Cusack. I only got a couple more left.
Your notes are better than the movie. You know that, right?
Thank you. 39 minutes in, this movie's attempts at humor are pitiful. The alpha princess, the blonde one, just called Riding Hood to say she found someone for her. Riding Hood asks, is he young? The camera pans to a fat man in a baby costume. Alpha blonde says, I guess you could say that. And then that end scene. I wrote as an aside, 41 minutes in and absolutely nothing scary. Not even any real attempts at scary. 30 minutes left, and I have no idea how this movie is an 84% on Rotten Tomatoes. No plot has been set up for any of the characters. They've all just popped in and started doing random things with no backstory. This writing is incoherent.
All right.
And then
go
ahead, sorry.
I'm getting the idea that you did not approve of this film.
No, I think I judged a little bit harshly once Jay explained like what tied. My notes do get slightly more positive at the end. Just one more here that I wanted to point out. 5 times in this movie, literally 5 times, someone responded to spooky sounds in the background by turning around and saying, "I'm not in the mood." You're not in the mood for what? It's Halloween. You're in a costume.
Wow.
What are you not in the mood for?
Getting murdered, obviously.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, 5 times.
Now that, you know what? Now that you've ruined this movie for me, I'm not going to watch it again this Halloween.
I want you to. So
No,
I
you
want
totally-
I want you to have these notes printed on your
You
lap.
totally ruined this for me.
But I did. My notes did get slightly better at the end of the movie. I really did like the way it tied the plot back in at the end. I liked the perspective shift. Like, for example, when Steven is burying the kid, he hears a sound next door, and it turns out that was Rip Torn getting murdered by Sam, but they don't tell you that till the very end of the movie. I thought that was a cool way of like reproducing that plot line.
It's got a little bit of a twist to it.
Yeah, and then like you explained the ending to me, which in fairness, had I followed along, I think I would have appreciated the ending a little bit more.
Yeah, because you just watched it and you were messaging me saying this movie is a pile festering of dog poo.
So that's all I got. 5 out of 10. Sorry for rambling on. Thank you for letting me go first. Glad we got that out of the way.
I'm glad too.
That's okay. We appreciate the thoroughness in which you took notes and did your research.
I just wanted to make you proud. Paul.
It's Dean.
And you wanted to make Jay look bad. I appreciate that too.
Jay can't even remember the IMDb rating of the movie that he's about to talk about.
No, that is not true. That is not.
There you go. That about says it all.
Seriously.
Amanda.
Yes.
Would you like to go next?
Yeah, go next,
I don't know how
Amanda.
anybody can follow that, but I will try. I will try. Yeah. So
You'll be okay.
Here. So my pick is a pretty sentimental one because it happens to be Mr. Vincent Price's first horror film.
Oh, Price.
Vincent Price, yes. From 1940, we have the American horror science fiction film from Universal, which is important. I'll get back to that. The Invisible Man Returns. Yeah.
Ooh.
How would you know if he returned? He's invisible.
Do you have to ruin my
All right,
pick? I haven't
next.
even gone there. Yeah.
Fear of the unknown, the unseen grips the populace. As a human being made invisible and insane by a potent drug, preys on the citizenry, intent on vengeance. Prison walls cannot hold him. Scotland Yard cannot stop him. And while science works frantically, while a loved one waits and hopes, the invisible hands of a condemned murderer deal out death and destruction.
It is obviously the sequel to the 1933 The Invisible Man, based on the novel by H.G. Wells of the same name. So here's the funny part about it being a Universal film. They, it ran quite long, like it's an 81-minute film. And at that time, Universal tried to stick under 75 minutes because they found that most audiences stayed with the movie at that point. But they made it 81 minutes. And you know what's so funny? Those extra 6 minutes, I think, made it. All right, so let me give you a quick little breakdown, as it were. The Invisible Man is, as I said, based on the novel by H.G. Wells. Vincent Price plays a gentleman called Sir Radcliffe from a very prominent coal mining family. And as happens with families who have a lot of money, people want that money, so they make up things. Mr. Radcliffe is accused and ultimately sentenced to the crime of the murder of his brother, which, I'm going to spoil it, he did not commit.
What?
I know. First of all, it's from 1940. If you haven't seen it yet, I'm not going to get in trouble for spoilers here. So, Vincent Price, Sir Radcliffe, has to go to jail. You know, he's in trouble. I guess murder is illegal even back then. So Dr. Griffin is a gentleman who works within the prison facility. His brother, who, by the way, was the original Man of Invisibility, and not Spider. No, is that Superman who does that?
What?
Who becomes invisible? Wonder Woman.
Just no. She has an invisible plane.
Silver Surfer.
Silver Surfer.
Or
Magneto.
Robin.
Wolverine.
The Invisible Woman.
Robin.
Bicentennial Man.
The Hulk.
The Hulk.
Yeah.
It's one of them.
Green. Well, the Hulk turns invisible when he's in front of a weather map because he's green and he gets keyed out by the.
He gets green screened.
Yeah.
Green screen.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's a half credit.
It's a half credit. Okay. So Dr. Griffin, who works within the prison facility, he injects the Invisible Man serum, which is basically just Kool-Aid, into Radcliffe, and it turns him invisible.
No.
It does, right? So people can't see him. They think that Radcliffe has escaped because, where is this person? All in all, he's just like trying to get away, and he has to hit on his mind. The only thing is vengeance. I must find the man who actually killed my brother. And now with these superpowers of being invisible, And, not because you were not picked at a school dance, but actually invisible.
And naked, too, which got to be.
Yeah, why? Why do you do that? So he goes to hunt down the new killer. Now, his company, Mr. Radcliffe's company, while he was incarcerated and all this fun stuff, they've promoted an employee called Willie Spears, which is kind of suspicious, right? Because of the sake of the plot, it has to be suspicious for some reason. It's 1940. And he finds out the murder of his brother is actually his cousin Richard. So Richard, cousin of Radcliffe.
Is his name is Richard?
Yeah.
So Dick Spears?
Oh.
I was going to like Pickle Spears.
Or a really good porn star name.
Pickle Spears?
Dick Spears.
Yeah.
Dick Spears is good.
Continue.
I forgot what I was going to say. Radcliffe finds out that it's his cousin Richard who murdered his brother. Battle ensues, a big fight ensues, and all of a sudden, Richard is dead. And Radcliffe, who is still the Invisible Man, and whose serum is starting to sort of eke out of him through blood, obviously, is dying. So what they have to do is they have to, one, prove his innocence before he dies, and two, family members have to come around, donate blood so that he can become a visible man again, which they do, right? And it makes him visible again.
Wow, they should really be donating that blood to the war effort. It's 1940.
Oh, yeah.
That's a good point. Well, the war, we hadn't technically entered the war yet.
Not yet.
But buy bonds. You know what I mean?
With your blood.
Yeah.
Blood bonds.
Yeah,
Blood bonds.
Ooh. Blood bonds are forever.
Oh, I like that.
That's a good title for a movie.
So let me give you the
Blood bonds
scores.
are forever. Yeah. James Blood Bonds.
If this is not our highest rated episode, I don't know what we're going to do. So IMDb gives it a 6.5, which I think is kind of like, whatever, not bad. But Rotten Tomatoes gives it an 82%. That's the tomato score. So that's super fresh. That's like 2-day salsa fresh.
Super fresh.
Super fresh.
That's a 70s movie. Super fresh.
Super fresh. I'm giving it an 8.5. I love Vincent Price. He has a cool voice. It was his first horror flick. And I liked the idea that it was one of those movies where, it's like Double Jeopardy almost. Remember? Did you ever watch Double Jeopardy with what's her face? Ashley Judd.
Ashley Judd.
Is that the one with Lindsay Lohan?
Ashley's Jugs. What?
No.
No.
No, that was Parent Trap.
Parent Trap.
Oh my God! It was Parent Trap. That was literally exactly what I was thinking of.
It's
I don't
like
belong
that.
here at all.
It's one of those movies, right, where you kind of feel depressed, like it's never going to get solved, right? Here's this guy, is innocent man. He's found guilty of a crime that he didn't commit. What's going to happen? What do we do? So that's where you suspend the reality and think, okay, if he's the Invisible Man, he's going to become the hero and save the day, which he kind of does. So I give it 8.5. I have a couple of fun facts for it. So it being his first horror role, I gotta say, is kind of an exaggeration because he only appeared on screen for a minute and 32 seconds. Well, he's invisible.
Yeah, but Invisible Man, he only appeared for a minute and 32 seconds.
Well,
That's
no, because
part of the role.
Well, yeah, but he's not actually invisible. There's no kind of paint
what
for
an
that.
easy way to
make a
to make up money. Yeah.
Well, yeah,
So-
he's invisible. He's in the movie for an hour and a half. But
Well,
Just
I mean,
listen to
his
my
voice.
disembodied
He got paid for his
voice.
lines.
So it was actually a really big commercial success. Its budget was about $285,000. It ranked up almost $1 million.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
$1 million.
$1 million. And it spawned I guess you can call it the next sequel, The Invisible Woman, which was a comedy. It didn't do so well, but this,
Wow,
you got to check it out.
Yeah.
They went comedy.
I
yeah.
remember that movie. I remember both those movies, actually.
So where can you watch this? You can find this on YouTube as of this recording and on Tubi, both for free. Tubi has ads, of course. Or you can buy it on iTunes for $3.99.
Wow, nice.
Or you can find it
Invisible
on
Man.
piratebay.org. Just download your favorite torrent app.
Not that we condone that sort of thing.
We don't. Nope.
Wow.
Is that going to be bleeped?
I mean,
No, that's not going to be.
You invited us on.
I gotta go.
Anyways, that's my pick.
Very nice.
Who's next? Jay?
Jay's going.
Jay.
Yes. So my pick is a 2010 American British film. Actually, it was done. I didn't even know this. I thought Hammer Films was gone. Apparently, in Britain, it's still going. So it was done by Hammer Films, and they call it a romantic horror film, which I guess it's there. I don't know. I went with a vampire theme, and it's a classic vampire theme, and it's also a vampire like foobar, if you will, because it involves a child vampire. The name of the movie that I picked is Let Me In, which was also a 2008 Swedish film called Let the Right One In.
An ancient forest found the body a few days ago has survived for 200 years. One of your recent graduates was killed by living.
Are you a vampire?
As a child.
I need blood to live.
You okay? From the director of Cloverfield.
Do you think there's such a thing as evil?
How do you protect a bond when you were cursed to destroy? Let Me In, rated R.
I actually watched both of the movies. The Swedish one was a little darker. I really liked it a lot. But this movie I really liked because the two stars of the movie really are these two young kids. One of them, he's been bullied pretty much all through school. He's a 12-year-old boy, and he friends this female child vampire. And it takes place in Los Alamos, New Mexico in the early 1980s. And what I liked about it was she moves in with next to this young lad, and he's, they're in an apartment complex, and they move in, and she's with this older man, and he thinks that it's what was that?
My phone made a noise, so I threw it. Sorry about that.
You did throw it. Wow. But anyway, you think that this is her dad, and it turns out to be like her handler. And she doesn't actually go out and feed like a normal vampire. And if she does, she does at one point, but what she does, she's really like a ripper. Like she's not clean about biting and drawing blood at all. She's just rips them apart.
She's not
basically.
elegant.
And so the handler usually goes out and basically drains these victims that he finds and brings back the blood to her, and then she's able to feed that way. It's really cool. She's actually really cool, and it's sad because, a lot of times in movies like Interview with a Vampire, when they bring in a child vampire, it's like...
I had to close it. What do you want from me? It's Pokemon Go, okay?
Yes.
You know what? Just continue.
So anyway, like Interview with a Vampire, when they brought in
Claudia,
yeah, she's this child vampire, and she doesn't age physically, but she ages mentally. And then what her demise is horrible. But the cool thing I liked about this movie was, I guess, I don't know if it's a romantic thing. I guess it is, because they kind of fall in love with each other. And so I guess it's kind of romantic in a way. I don't know. It sounds
like romance.
But it's horror. But I don't consider this kind of like a real true like horror movie. I consider this, vampire movies to me aren't really horror movies unless it is like a Hammer film horror movie. I don't know. Does that make any sense, Tom?
Yeah, Hammer films, they're too legit to quit.
I was going to say that.
See there.
But you know what's interesting about Hammer films, if I can just poke in real quick, they're based out of London, obviously now, but they were based out of a place called Bray, Bray Studios, which is in Berkshire, and that is about 15 minutes from my husband's hometown, like childhood hometown.
Yeah, we're gonna
that's
edit
cool.
that.
Wow.
Interesting.
That's true.
What did you say? You're going to edit that out?
I'm just kidding.
Wow. Well, anyway, this film was directed by Matt Reeves, and the two characters in the film, Abby and Owen.
Steve.
No, Owen. Well, they're played by Kodi Smit-McPhee. Am I saying that right? And Chloe Grace Moretz, I guess. Anyway, yeah. So that was the American British version and actors that were in it. But I really liked it. I think it's really cool. I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10.
God, such a honk.
Yeah, that's me.
You could watch 60 minutes of like
First of all, you've never seen.
First
First of all, you've never seen the film, so suck it. Second of all, IMDb gives it a 7.1, and Rotten Tomatoes gave it an 88.
Okay, all right.
That's good scores.
Yeah, so I'm not too far off with my score. It's just that I'm a big vampire fan, as you know. I played a vampire for 6 years, I should say, in a show that I directed and starred in with my band Sub 7 and the Undead. And so I'm a big fan of vampires, and I really like this movie a lot. I really like the movie that Dean reviewed a lot, and he destroyed it for me.
Actually, funny you said that.
Because, you know what? I'm not done talking.
Well,
Dean.
wait. One of my notes before you go too far. I want to make sure this gets in. You just mentioned Sub 7. One of my notes was, it's the filming of a Sub 7 in the Undead music video. Oh wait, never mind.
Yeah. And why that makes absolutely no sense was because they were werewolves, not vampires.
Oh, why it makes absolutely no sense at all, idiot.
Again, suck it.
Well, to get back to Jay's pick, it's something that is interesting about this film. And you mentioned Anne Rice's novel and then eventual film, Interview the Vampire. I think it's one of the first times it's presented, especially by her, this idea of a child immortal, because of course it grows mentally, but not physically. So when Claudia comes on the scene, and she is of course a little girl, and as well as in this movie, as women age, we tend to fall in love and all these sort of things. So you toe the line between like indecency almost, because of course she's old, she's 200 years old, but she's, you know what I mean? Like, you can't picture her in a romantic relationship with Louis, and yet that's how she sees it.
Right, exactly.
So it's interesting that that concept actually comes across even in this film. And I think they do a good job of it, because it's not necessarily as awkward as perhaps it would be in the 1994 version of whatever, Interview the Vampire is. So that's a good pick.
And that's a good point too. And I didn't want to spoil the movie at all in any way because of how the movie opens. And you wonder what's going on. And then as the movie progresses, you do realize that it's not her father, it's not her handler. You know what I mean? And I'm not going to say any more, but it's just interesting how she just keeps living, and these people that, take care of her and love her and help her out, they obviously get old and die, so it's kind of cool. You know what I mean? Like it. And the other thing, about vampire movies that bring children in on it, that's the element that you sit there and go, wow, it's kind of sad in a way. Like, you know what I mean? You kind of feel bad for the child character, you know what I mean? But one of the other things I wanted to say is there's another movie that's related to this movie, and I can't remember the name of it, but I did see it when I was searching for the movie. Oh, and you can also rent this on iTunes. And I believe it's not on Netflix, but I think it's on Amazon. But one of the things about it was there was another movie, something about the darkness of their eyes or something like that. And it actually has to do with more child vampires, only there's like a bunch of them. So I haven't watched that yet. I'm going to watch it. It looks pretty cool. I believe it's a foreign film, but I want to definitely check it out. So that's my pick. And I like my rating, Dean.
Well, I think it was good. Good job, Jay.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's definitely a good movie.
Thank you.
Everything's great. Everything's wonderful, everybody.
Suck it.
All right, so is it my turn finally?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Let's just do this.
Remember, no blood, no gore, none of that.
No fun.
Tommy, 10 out of 10.
Wait a minute. Tom, no blood, no gore. No.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, so I'm actually going further back than even Manda's pick. And it's also
really?
a Universal film.
Oh, nice.
So my pick is the 1931 classic Dracula.
Yes.
Wait, is Max Schroeder?
No, that's Nosferatu.
Oh, that's Nosferatu. Sorry.
I'm talking about, most people I would say that, and they would think the Bela Lugosi version.
Oh, yeah.
Right? But actually, I'm talking about a different version of Dracula. I'm talking about the Spanish language version that was shot, simultaneously with the original Bela Lugosi version. And the thing about this version is it's actually better than the Bela Lugosi version. So, before we talk a little about the movie, I'm going to go into a little movie history here. So, back in the early days of motion pictures, movies, of course, were silent. The invention of what was called the Vitaphone system in the 1920s allowed talkies to replace the silent film. Now, while this was a huge advance in motion pictures, it did have some problems. Some actors simply couldn't make the transition from silent film to talking pictures. Directors, of course, had to now stay quiet on the set because any noise now would be picked up by the microphones, when before they would just shoot silently. But another problem that cropped up with the move to talking pictures was that they would distribute these films to foreign markets.
Right.
And in a silent film, it's just as easy as changing the title cards. Because, you would have the dialogue written down on a card, and they would show those throughout the movie. But with the talkies, that wasn't possible.
Can you just not call it talkies? It just...
Talkies!
Was that
talkies?
I hear that term a lot. Was that actually how they were referred to?
Yes.
Yeah. Originally, when they talking pictures or talkies.
Okay.
Like movies.
Yeah.
It's kind of a thing. So they did really...
Sorry, movies is a misnomer. Yeah. They've always moved.
Right. But they didn't always talk, and so they had movies and then they went to talkies.
Well, how come they don't call it speechies?
I'm turning your microphone off now. I'm just going to click that. Right. That's an option.
Fair enough.
But speaking of microphones, they really hadn't figured out how to dub voices over like they can do now, or subtitles. They didn't have that either. So they had to figure out, how can we make movies that, foreign markets want to see, but in a different language. And they thought, well, why don't we just shoot the same movie on the same sets with the same costumes, just different actors, and do it in a different language. And that happened quite a bit in the early days of sound pictures. And Dracula was one of them. One of the biggest markets, foreign markets, was Mexico. So they decided to shoot a Spanish language version of Dracula at night. So during the day, the regular crew would come in and shoot the scenes with Bela Lugosi and the rest of the cast. And at night, the other actors and crew would come in and shoot the Spanish version of it. But what makes the Spanish version, I think, better is because the director of the Spanish version would watch that day's shooting from the other director and say, okay, I don't like that. I don't like that. I can do it better than that. I can do it better than that. And then did different shots.
Right.
So it's the same movie, same script, different camera angles, and in most cases, better camera angles. He moved the camera a lot more than the director of the original Dracula, Todd Browning. And they just wanted to show up the American crew and say, we can do better than this.
Right.
And so they did it in a much more visual way, which I thought was fantastic. And this film was lost for decades.
Right.
Till the 1970s, when somebody found a copy of it and then it was restored. But it's a fascinating look at a classic movie, but through different eyes.
Yeah.
And it's just, now I will say this, the performances are not that great. Bela Lugosi was amazing.
Yes, he was.
As Dracula.
Rest in peace.
And, not to sound, not to be offensive, God forbid, but the acting of the Spanish cast was a little, Sábado Gigante, if you know what I mean.
This reminds me of like when you're watching WWE and you hear Jim Ross and he's like, it's gonna be a slobber knocker. And then you see the Telemundo version. Hey, estoy, oh, esta rock. Yeah. Anyways.
Yeah, something like that. So the acting was a little overdone.
Yeah.
Very expressive.
Yes. A little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just find this to be a more entertaining film than the original, just because I've seen the original so many times, and to see a different version of it, but it looks familiar, but it's not. And it's just a fascinating, I think, footnote in Hollywood history that this thing actually exists.
You can appreciate it for being two different things of the same thing.
Exactly. Yeah. So on to the score. So this version of Dracula gets a 7.2 out of 10 on the Internet Movie Database.
Okay.
And a 75% on Rotten Tomatoes. And right now, the only place to be able to see this film is on a website called archive.org, which is the home of the Internet Archive.
Yeah, it's really cool.
The Internet Archive, Jay knows about. I told Jay about this, where there are literally hundreds and hundreds of public domain films that the copyright has fallen off of, that you can watch, copy, use any way that you like.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's really, and it's got one of my favorite things about the.
I don't mean to interrupt you. I've actually used some of those. I've used some of those sound clips from those movies in some of the songs that I've written, some of the electronic stuff I've written.
That's cool.
Yeah, because it's free use for anybody, because it's public domain.
Oh, do they have the Wendy's theme?
I don't know what that is.
Okay.
Yeah. But on a side note, along with this movie, there's actually another version of Dracula that was shot in yet another language. And this is a real rarity. This one's actually, I can't find it. I can only find clips online. I can't find the whole thing. It's
French.
No, it's actually was done entirely in American Sign Language.
Oh yeah.
So all of the characters sign instead of talk. Yeah, and okay, I don't know whose idea this was, and I am not joking. This sounds like a joke, but
person's.
Yeah, exactly. The movie is called Deafula.
Get the actual F out.
No, it is.
I am not kidding.
That's incredible. Is he deaf? Is that part of like the plot? Like,
yeah.
Aren't they all deaf in the movie?
He's deaf like through the whole movie, and his assistant, his like Igor character, right, or Renfield type character, actually has his hands cut off, and nobody can understand him.
Oh my god, that's amazing.
Yeah,
I wish you could find that. I would watch.
I know.
That's
I want to find it.
Oh man, I want to watch that.
But yeah, it's one of the only films ever.
We should
shot
all
entirely
watch
in
that and
Sign
then
language.
do another show
in sign language.
Yeah.
Yep.
We should do a sign language podcast. Yeah.
For an
That'd be
audio
fantastic.
podcast, absolutely.
Yeah.
Or we could do a Morse code podcast. It's like,
Yeah. Podcast for the deaf.
It'd be like be dead silence. People like, what happened to what are you talking about, man? That's it. That's
yeah, weren't you listening?
Oh.
What are you, deaf?
Oh,
I know a fun fact about
I
the
heard
original
that.
Dracula movie.
Yeah.
So in 1922, I believe it actually. So
you sailed the ocean blue.
Yes. So the 1931 release of Dracula was not technically the first Dracula movie. Was it Nosferatu?
Yes.
Released in 1922, and then it was. They were sued for copyright infringement.
Yeah, it was a silent version, but yeah, it was based, I think, more directly on the Bram Stoker.
Yep.
Book.
Which I think you can't even really compare to the Bela Lugosi. I think they're two different animals.
They really are.
I
Yeah.
No, they
really
are.
do.
They are.
The 1931 version is so embellished because the actual story is not as terribly as long as
Right.
but they had to add more stuff to it.
Well,
And
have
I
you ever
don't
read
do blah,
Dracula?
blah, blah.
It's a very long book. Yeah, it's like 500 pages.
Get out of my goddamn house.
Yeah, there's no way I'm reading that.
Anyway.
Who reads? Nobody reads.
That's
why we do this podcast.
I still read.
I just finished a book last night.
Yeah. We still read.
What was it?
Was it delicious?
The Bible?
No, it was actually yes, the Bible.
Oh, you're wait a minute, hold on. Dean definitely didn't read the Bible.
Don't you listen to belligerents? No, it was FDR's biography.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I have a fascination with.
I'm in the book, according to
yeah,
Dean.
Yeah, Jay was the Secretary of State.
I bet you found that damning.
Whoa,
Oh, come on, get it? Because
what?
it's just a dam. You mean like a dam?
Like Hoover Dam?
Like who? Oh shoot, that was Hoover.
Yeah, no, you're kind of. I mean, I got what you're like. You were close.
No, not really.
Well, no, she was. I mean, he was. He was the.
We'll be holding auditions. For
I mean,
Hoover.
Hoover was the president until 1932.
I'm a history major.
When FDR became president. So.
And by the way, it's not
Did he
even called
sail
that
the
anymore,
ocean
it's
blue?
called Boulder Dam.
No, he was a humorless bastard, is what Herbert Hoover was actually.
He really was, actually.
Yeah, my husband calls vacuuming hoovering.
Oh, wow, there's somebody. I wonder if is Hoover vacuums named after Herbert
They
Hoover?
might
He
actually.
sucked all
he
the air out of
sucked.
the room.
Oh,
Hey,
All those Hoovervilles.
jokes about the 1920s.
There you go. Da.
where's my moonshine?
The Kaiser. Someone should put him on a roll.
Oh my
hey.
goodness. How's about that, Dick?
Oh,
Lisa Rugg, Jackson.
Who's your Moses now?
See? Oh man, this has degenerated very quickly, hasn't it?
Yeah, but it was good. It was fun.
It was good. Yes, it was
I found
fun.
it to be fun.
So that does it for us. Let's recap the picks for this particular episode.
Mhm.
Dean's pick was not really his pick. I think Jay, picked that for him. That's fine.
Last time that ever happens.
Yeah, exactly. Trick or Treat, which I believe, Dean gave it the old college try.
Yeah, agreed.
And, and we appreciate his thoughtfulness. And
I'm a big fan of notes.
Yeah, exactly.
He was thorough. I'll give him that.
Yeah, and we appreciate that. Now, Jay's pick was, of course, Let Me In, the vampire, sort of a very kind of a more of a subtle horror film, but a little bit of more of a slow burn with that one. But that's a great pick as well.
Mm-hmm.
And Manda's pick was.
Oh yeah,
go ahead.
1940's The Invisible Man Returns with Vincent Price.
Vincent Price.
Vincent Price.
Yes. And of course, my pick was the 1931 Spanish version of Dracula, available on the Internet Archive. So that does it. Yeah. That does it for us and this podcast. We would really like to thank our special guests, Dean and Jay, I said that right this time,
you did.
Of the Belligerents podcast, available at your local podcast dealership.
Strawberries.
Yes. Listen. Oh, that takes
Sam Goody.
Sam Goody.
Oh, man.
Yo, Sam Goody here, kid.
Jeez. I miss Tower Records, though.
Oh, Tower Records.
Oh, I miss Tower
Records.
Well, there is a Tower Records in Japan still.
Of course.
Hey, do you know what? I do have one honorable mention.
Oh, yeah, you do.
Young Frankenstein.
Oh, yeah.
It is the best Halloween movie, and hands down, fight me. It is the best movie. So funny.
It's interesting that you say that.
Right.
Frau Blucher.
Because our next episode, our next dive is going to be comedy horror.
Comedy
movies.
horror.
Oh, is
Now
Trick
that
or
you said
Treat going
Young
to be in there?
Frankenstein.
Oh.
Is it ironic comedy movies?
Is Jay
ones that are
scowling at you?
intentionally funny.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Boo hiss.
There you go.
So
this is
stay
why
tuned
I like
to our next dive.
Yeah, this is why I like Belligerents. It's kind of like watching an old married couple fighting in Applebee's.
It's so cute.
Yeah.
Wow.
You're not far off.
He gets so upset that even when he whacks his elbow on a table, he just makes a mockery or
It's
he
wonderful.
has no quarrels about standing up and screaming, "God damn my elbow!"
All right, so that does it for us here at Studio D. Thanks once again to the guys from the Belligerents podcast. Listen and subscribe.
Hey, over here.
For the amazing Manda and myself and all of us here.
Hey, can
We'll
I
see
say
you
my
next time.
favorite tagline at the end?
No, you can't.
Oh, why not?
Because you actually can't.
Oh, okay.
Thanks, guys. This
No,
was great.
No.
Thanks.
All right, yeah.
Thanks
you,
for having
guys.
us.
Thank you guys for joining us. For links to all our social media feeds, visit our website at thedeepdivepodcast.com and send us your suggestions and comments at thedeepdivepodcast@gmail.com. This podcast may contain copyrighted material, the use of which has not necessarily been authorized by the copyright owner. All programs reviewed were available in the United States at time of recording, but are subject to change by date or region. The Deep Dive Podcast is a production of Automaton Media.
I got 5 pieces of candy. I got a chocolate bar. I got a quarter. I got a rock. Trick or treat! Gee, I got a candy bar. Boy, I got 3 cookies. Hey, I got a package of gum. I got a rock. Trick or treat! I got a popcorn ball. I got a fudge bar. I got a pack of gum. I got a rock.